Hare Krishna. It's a great honor for me to speak for you this evening. I'm very happy to be with you. Many of you I know, some of you I don't know. So as Kripa Mahaprabhu already said, I was asked to speak on this very important subject of faith. And the first thing which we have to understand about the faith is that everyone has some faith. Even those people who claim to be atheists or, non-believers, they believe that there is no God. That's their belief. And this belief is not substantiated by any proof. All these atheistic people, their favorite argument, just prove us that God exists. But it's equally right to ask them, please prove us that God does not exist. And they will not be able to produce any substantial proof of this. And this particular point was very beautifully explained by Krishna, where Krishna says in the 17th chapter, in the beginning of 17th chapter of Krishna, Sattvanna Rupa Sarvasya Shradhamayayam Purusho, that Purusha, the living being, is Shradhamaya, is made of faith. But unfortunately, for the great majority of people, this faith has the nature of Sattva Anurupa. It more or less reproduces his mental makeup. Basically, everyone believes in something according to the condition of his mind. And Krishna says this. If somebody is a tamasic person, he will have tamasic faith. And this tamasic faith will have a tamasic manifestations, and he will lead tamasic way of life because he believes that this is the right way to live. And there is no logical proof that this is the right way to live. Tamasic people, they like to drink. And, I'm from Russia, therefore I'm giving some example which is close to my compatriots. So, they believe that it is good. And they may even write books that this is good and, try to kind of prove it. But ultimately it's a belief, because this belief is close to their heart. Ultimately, they just want to believe in it because this is the condition of their mind. And that's exactly what Krishna says when he says Sattva Anurup. Anurup means it follows, it's more or less the Shraddha of these people, more or less follows or reproduces the mental makeup of these people. It's just replica of their constitution. And we know, according to Ayurveda, our mind consists of three gunas, of sattva, rajas and tamas, and these three gunas, they constitute our mental makeup. And rajasic people, they will believe in enjoyment and they will, have a great time of proving that this is the only way to live. And sattvic people have their beliefs. But what Krishna is explaining in Bhagavad Gita, and that's extremely important point to understand, that these three kinds of faith, which people develop completely spontaneously, automatically, without any conscious endeavors, without any logical kind of attempts to understand the reality, they all are useless. Why? Because they do not bring any new quality in your life. You remain where you are. Your life becomes more or less a repetition, useless repetition of what you already are. You more or less reproduce yourself. Prabhupada explains it very beautifully in this verse, commenting this verse of Bhagavad Gita in the 17th chapter, I believe it's 3rd verse, where he says that Shraddha of faith is necessary, and the faith itself has the nature of the mode of goodness. So the faith itself can elevate person, but usually it doesn't if it just more or less follows the, what is already there. So the faith, Shraddha, has this ability to elevate you. The mission of human life, the very purpose of human life is evolution. Human beings are special, have a special place in evolution of the consciousness, and that special place is that they can go even further. They can elevate themselves. The peculiarity of human species of life is that human species of life is a transitionary position in the evolutionary, how you call it? Ladder, an evolutionary ladder, in a sense that there are 4 things or 4 case scenarios which can happen with the soul which obtained human body. It can degrade back down into the lower species. It can remain on the same level and remain a human being in the next life. It can be promoted to the higher realms of existence, that is heavenly planets or heavens, and it can transcend completely, altogether, the material conditioning of this life and obtain the spiritual position in the spiritual world. And ultimately, the human being is meant to do the last thing, to transcend. But usually people remain on the same level at best. Or in the worst case scenario, they go down, they degrade themselves, and this is a complete tragedy. This is a tragedy because we have something special in us and we have to utilize it to the fullest extent. So therefore, Krishna is extremely negative about this kind of traditional faith. Basically, when Krishna is speaking about this Sattvanurupa Sarvasya Shraddhamayam Purusha, he is more or less speaking about faith which is developed, which is created by the customary, by custom. You're living in certain environment, and you just, by custom, you believe in certain things. If you take Indians, they believe in certain things. If you take Gujaratis, they believe in particular things. And then if you take Russians, they believe in communism and Lenin. Not anymore, but they used to do it. But this is, and usually people, they're very proud of their faith. But if you ask them, how do you develop this faith, they will never be able to say, because it's more or less put in themselves from the environment. There is nothing special about the faith which they ultimately develop, because they only follow the tradition, more or less. But by saying that these 3 kinds of faith are useless, Krishna implies that there is a 4th kind of faith, which is extremely useful. And this 4th kind of faith, which is transcendental faith, not the faith in the modes of material nature, not sattvika, not rajasika, not tamasika, but completely transcendental faith, Shraddha, can only be created by association. And this particular faith, which is the seed of the most precious gift in our life, the gift of love, can be given to us by Sadhu Sanga. most of you are Indians, and you know how much stress is there in the Indian culture on Sadhu Sanga. Again and again and again, people are being told you don't have to do anything, but just every now and then come to some Sadhu Sanga, sit there, look at the sadhu, and something may happen to you. And that's a fact, because this is what explained by our Acharyas, Jiva Goswami. He says that just by seeing sadhu, or by what to speak about listening of a saintly person or sadhu, you may develop this transcendental faith, Shraddha. And the way how it's being developed is that you develop little respect towards him. Generally in the culture, in the Indian culture, in the Vedic culture in particular, there is a great deal of emphasis is given towards the respect to saintly person. And respect, when it becomes directed, when it's directed towards a particular person, is the seed of Shraddha, which is completely, totally causeless. Ultimately, when we're talking about this transcendental elevation or elevation on the transcendental plane, we're talking about causeless things. Because this whole world is ruled by the law of cause and effect. This law of cause and effect is called the law of karma. And we know this whole realm of material existence is on this side, on this shore of the causal ocean. Why the ocean of creation is called causal? Because on this shore, everything is causal. Everything is completely conditional and causal and has cause and effect relationship. On the other side, which is the spiritual realm, everything is completely causeless. And to go from this shore of the causal ocean to another shore of the causal ocean, you have to obtain something which is causeless. And the seed of this extremely precious gift of the causeless spiritual world is causeless Shraddha, or causeless faith, which is given to you without any cause, just by mercy of a sadhu, if you happen to come. How it works? There is a beautiful story about Srila Prabhupada. Giriraj Maharaj explained this. How it works. And this is a real kind of process which we have to understand how it works. Our acharyas explain that this faith, so many people may come to Sadhu Sanga, and not everyone will develop faith. So the question which we should ask ourselves, why, is answered that faith is causeless. And of course, what you should do, you should be a little respectful, but still, it's not a guarantee. But the Acharya says that there is a special energy in the heart of a sadhu, which is called Kripa Shakti of the Lord, the energy of mercy. And if this energy is being agitated towards a particular person, or towards everyone who is there, then for sure this kripa or mercy in the form of faith or shraddha will descend upon this particular person. There is a very interesting story in this regard. Giriraj Maharaj likes to tell this story. He says that he was a young boy, and he was a student, and he was looking for some meaning in life. And he was visiting different gurus, and he was going here and there, and then he also heard that there is some Swamiji who is talking, tonight. So he went to this event, he sat there, And he asked some stupid questions. He himself says, his basic questions, how to find the proper guru. And Prabhupada looked at him and and seeing through him says, it depends what you want. Whether you want to become God or you want to become a servant of God. And Giriraj Maharaj, he remembers, he says, in my bedroom in the hostel of university, there was a big poster, and the poster was saying, "You are God." So Prabhupada answered this, and then, somehow or other, there was some little exchange, very little, minimum exchange between them. And then somehow or other he got inspired and he started coming and he was more and more involved, and it's going on. And Prabhupada was not there. So 1.5 years later, Prabhupada comes again. And by that time Giriraj Maharaj he's not yet Maharaj, but he's already almost brahmachari, and he's completely into it. His whole life has changed, everything is changed because he got this seed of faith. So when Prabhupada came after the lecture, Giriraj Maharaj started asking some other questions, much more intelligent questions this time. And Prabhupada said, "I remember you." It was 1.5 years past, and Prabhupada said to him, "I remember you. At that time, 1.5 years back, I was praying for you in my heart. Such a nice boy, let him become a devotee." And Giriraj Maharaj himself, he says, "Now I understand what happened." This Kripa Shakti which lives in the heart of a sadhu, when it was agitated or, somehow or other was turned on towards a particular person, this particular person got this Kripa. And this Kripa is causeless. There is no pious credits or whatever on the side of this person. It's just mercy. And when you get this faith, what is most important, when you get this faith, you have to understand that this is the most precious gift which you have. Because ultimately this is a small seed which can grow into a huge tree of love of God. Faith is love of God, but in a very undeveloped, rudimentary form. Like a huge banyan tree is there and a tiny, tiny seed of banyan. So in the same way, this huge, tree of love, creeper of love, spiritual love, which is unlimited. According to our scriptures, the love, when you develop it, it's such an overwhelming experience that it doesn't, it completely, your heart blooms, your heart becomes completely unlimited. Now your heart is very small. Maybe a few people can make it into your heart, your children, maybe not even your wife doesn't have a place there in your heart. I don't know. But that's the reality. People become selfish, and it means the heart shrinks. The heart becomes more and more closed. But the effect, and heart means consciousness, the effect of spiritual practice and spiritual mercy which we get is that heart starts blooming. It's literally blooms and expands. And if you see the saintly people who achieved success in this path, their heart is so big. Practically the whole world can make it into their hearts. It's so big that unlimited God is there in their heart. Now we don't have place for Him in our heart. Really, it's too crowded there, We have to be practical. But, when your heart blooms, it's the most the most amazing experience. You know, when the heart is small, you have all these very unpleasant emotions like fear and the feeling that something is lacking in myself, and depression is there. This is what the small heart is capable of feeling of. But when the heart blooms, you know, it's an amazing thing. You know, you love everyone, literally. You are so bold and you don't have any fear. There is no place for fear in the big heart. The fear is the condition of a small heart. But when the heart is there, completely in union with God, then there is no fear there, you know, and you're so fearless that you're ready to give everything which you have. Because usually we don't do this because we're afraid. What will happen to me if I give everything? But nothing will happen to you. You know, your spirit soul, don't worry about this. But when the heart becomes soft and big, you know, you become very generous. You become real human being. So what I mean to say is that this little seed, little tiny seed of faith, is the most important thing which we can get in our life. Because this is the only thing which can bring the new quality in our life. This is the only thing, this little tiny seed can take us from this shore of the causal ocean onto another shore and give us the spiritual world, the complete freedom, love of God, relationship with God, personal relationship, you know, so many important things it can give us. And this faith is, when we get it, is something which we have to develop. We get it through this mysterious process of Sadhu Sanga. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that first there is Satam Kripa. The very first, very unnoticed, usually unnoticed stage of spiritual life is Satam Kripa, or the mercy of sadhus, of Sat, Satam. The next stage is Mahat Seva. To develop faith, now I will very quickly go through the different stages, how this faith grows. First you get this mercy, but then to develop this faith, you have to develop little desire to serve sadhu. And serving sadhu doesn't mean, you know, it's not too difficult. You know, sadhus, first of all, they don't need much. So it's not that they're demanding, you know, now you serve me, you're my slave. No. Sadhus are, you know, you give them little garland and that's enough. You know, even if you don't give them garland, that's also okay. If you just sit and listen a little bit, they're already happy, you know. Sadhus are like this, you know. They like to talk, and if somebody sits and listens to them, that's good enough. But Mahat Seva is the next stage. You know, when you get little mercy, and then the desire to serve, because it's reciprocation. You get some reciprocal feeling, and if you try to serve, to do something little. Prabhupada was very expert in this. He knew how it works. There is a beautiful story. It's a little long story, so I will not go into details of this story, but he was once, when he just came to Manhattan, to America, he brought this, you know, 3 trunks of books, of which he was very proud because it was printed in Delhi, you know, and if you have seen this first printing of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's kind of little strange according to Western standards. So he's there in the center of New York City in Manhattan, you know, and he's going through some street, and in his heart is only one desire: how I can give people a chance to see these books, to read these books, to somehow or other associate, because this is another kind of Sadhu Sanga. Narottam Das Thakur says that there are two kinds of Sadhu Sanga. One is the direct reciprocation or direct association with the sadhu. Another one is reading of a holy scripture. Reading of Shastras is also Sadhu Sanga because it's Sat. Sadhu means somebody who is established in truth. And if you are reading the holy scriptures, it's the same. It has the same. So Prabhupada, he's eager to do this. And he's going through Manhattan and he sees this, posh, luxury cosmetic shop with a huge window, where very expensive cosmetic is being displayed. And he goes and he says, that's a good place for my books to be displayed. So he goes into the shop and he asks, can I speak with the shopkeeper, with the owner of the shop? And because he's so gentle and he's so humble, so the clerk calls the shopkeeper and he says, and Prabhupada, says, I have nice books. Wouldn't you like to put them in your window and showcase? Very nice books. This shopkeeper, he's totally bewildered. He gets these books printed in Delhi, so, where if you've seen this first printing of Bhagavatam, there is no line which is straight. It's just kind of going in all directions. It's a strange kind of thing. And Prabhupada feels that, it doesn't go too far, from the initial response of the shopkeeper. So he decides another technique. He says, can I have a glass of water? so he reluctantly brings a glass of water. So that's already Mahat Seva. That's the service to a sadhu. And Prabhupada says, can I have a chair? So he brings him a chair. So Prabhupada sits in this chair. He gets this glass of water and he starts, slowly drinking it in a very graceful way, as only Prabhupada could do. And then he goes to his bag and he takes some little bag from this little box. He says, I have a nice samosa. Would you like to take this samosa? Anyway, this man became life member and, and Prabhupada did it to him. But the point is that if you do some seva, some service, that will solidify your faith. That's another stage, very important stage of your spiritual development. You get some little respect. This little respect has to manifest into something which, some little seva which is there. And then only, as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the Shraddha, the real Shraddha, the faith appears. And when the faith appears, the next stage, which is very important, Shushrushoh, he says, you have to develop desire to hear more and more. This hearing process is the beginning of spiritual life because through hearing you can dissipate all your doubts. Now we have this little seed of faith which is there in our heart, but this little seed of faith can be, it may not give, it may not grow because it is there in a very hostile environment of our heart. There's a lot of doubts. We're living in this age of doubts. Everyone is atheist, and and all our neighbors, they will always say, you must be crazy in believing in God. And we will have so much opposition. In this day and age, if you believe in God, you are almost like an alien, you're from another planet. Maybe you are, I don't know, maybe, but it's not so common. People, they somehow or other, they develop this artificial civilization over last 200 years, and they think, we can make it without God. And sure enough, they make it. They make a lot of mess without God. Practically the whole planet is destroyed by this human intelligence. But what I mean to say is that there is a lot of lingering doubts in our heart. And when the little seed of faith is there, the environment is not very conducive. So, if we want to develop this, we have to continue hearing. Not continue hearing. We have to develop desire to hear. We have to understand if this is something which is very important for me, for my development, then the only way to develop it is to develop desire to hear again and again and again. Sometimes people, they wonder why Prabhupada repeats the same thing again and again and again. The simple answer is that, because you still didn't understand these things. Prabhupada repeats again and again and again, you are not this body. The very fact that you have heard it 2,685 times doesn't mean that you realized it. Next time you come in front of your mirror, you completely forget about this lofty philosophy that you are not this body. You are. You're completely identifying yourselves. But this desire to hear is extremely important. Because from this desire to hear, all other important spiritual development will go stage by stage. When ultimately you will reach the amazing stage of, ecstatic emotional love of God and pure love, which is called Krishna Prema. But it all starts from a little tiny seed, which is again something extremely, extremely precious, because it can change our life completely 180 degrees. From the instinctive, automatic, more or less animalistic kind of life into the life of complete, beautiful self-sacrifice. When you're serving God and serving all the creatures in this world, and you're the most happy being, because all we need is love. The service is our nature. Faith is the most natural thing which we have, and this is, and if the faith is transcendental, this is the most rare thing which we may have. It's amazing, the people in Russia, because I'm from this Russian background, I will finish now, but I'll tell this little thing, little observation. Russia was completely atheistic country. For 70 plus years, you just were not allowed even to say God. Only if you are about to criticize God, you could be allowed to say God. If you say God doesn't exist, then it's okay. You can say this. And this, so much atheism was there. Atheism, sometimes, especially in India, to impress people. I say that I'm the atheist in the third generation. That my father was an atheist, my grandmother was an atheist, my grandfather was an atheist, and everyone becomes completely amazed. Third generation, that's something impressive. But, stupid as I am. But the point is that, even though people tried, sincerely tried, that was the official party line that there is no God, and they tried, they even sent, the first Sputnik to prove that there is no God. They didn't make any pictures of God out there in the space. So they thought it's a good proof that God doesn't exist. But anyway, so when the country became somewhat free, all of a sudden everyone starts believing in God again. Even when I was a little child, nobody taught me, but I was praying to God. And at that time, I was too small, and I didn't know that He doesn't exist. So I prayed to Him. I didn't know who He is, how He looks like, but I prayed to Him. And now, when I came to this Krishna conscious movement, I know who He is. I know how He looks like. I know His name. I know His girlfriend's name. And so many other intimate details. And I know how to pray to Him. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And I also know in which mood I have to do it. This proper mood of approaching God, which is the quickest way to realize God within our heart, is the mood of complete surrender and humility. And that's the topic of the next discussion which Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj will reveal to us. So thank you very much.